Jeannie Lauren Dowden with Conduit News, and today we are joined by President and founder of Arkansas Family Council, Jerry Cox, to go over our most recent legislative session and get his opinion on how things went. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Jenny, it's always a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for having me on the program.
Absolutely. We really appreciate all that you all do at Family Council. Nearly every day that I was there, I saw either you or someone on your staff there working on pieces of legislation, advocating for things. Talk to us about your overall impression of the session now that we've had a few weeks to reflect and look back.
Well, I can look back 30-something years.
Yeah.
Over 17 legislative sessions, actually, and compare the way it used to be with the way it is now. And I think our expectations have been so elevated that we expect great things from the legislature every time they convene. 30-something years ago, we were just trying to hold the line against Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and whatever things they were trying to do with all the Democrats that were out there. And so it has changed a lot over the years. I would say that this session was a very good one. It actually produced a lot more than I thought it was going to. One thing that was odd about it is we didn't have those heavy lift abortion bills because guess what? We've already done it. Abortion is illegal for the most part in Arkansas. So that took a big thing off of our plate, and we were able to focus on a number of other issues. Of course, the one that looms large in everybody's mind, and we're still waiting to see how it plays out, would be the LEARNS Act and the whole school choice aspect of it. But a lot of people have overlooked the fact that it has elements in there that talk about you can't indoctrinate people with a particular philosophy like critical theory, critical race theory. It has some items in there about not doing gender studies and all that below a certain grade in school and so forth. So there's some good things in that law that are not being talked about very much because everybody's focused on the money and how much that's going to be spread around. So I would say that this session was probably maybe our second best or maybe third best session in the whole 30-something years that we've been going to the Capitol. I was very proud of the funding that we were able to secure for pregnancy centers and some of the other good bills that you and I can certainly talk about if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since you said this was the second or third best legislative session, that begs me to ask, okay, what was the best? What was the top session that you were
Well, I think the 2021 session would be top and hard to top.
Yeah.
Because we got a law passed that totally bans abortions in 2021. We were able to get a law passed that protects female sports from people claiming to be girls and women.
Yeah.
We also got a law passed that prevents gender reassignment procedures on children. We were able to get that done. And then some other really good pro-life legislation that kind of escapes me right now. But, I talk to people from Massachusetts or Washington State, and they look at me and they say, "You did what?" "Yeah, we banned abortion."
Yeah.
Yeah, we banned, transgender individuals from competing against girls in female sports. And it was just like matter of fact almost here in Arkansas. And they look at me and they say, well, we could only dream about that kind of thing where we live. So I think we forget how good we have it here in Arkansas. And sometimes people get aggravated with the legislature because maybe they didn't get everything they want. But if you look at what we have here compared to what other people have, they would give most anything to have the kind of lawmakers that we have, the kind of voters that we have, and the kind of just conservative base that's right here in Arkansas.
Yeah, and talking about 2021, when you mentioned those few pieces of legislation, you now kind of move forward thinking ahead how things are now. Men competing in girls sports across the country is just out of control right now.
Right.
Transgender surgeries. I mean, it was so, you know, I guess Robin Lundstrom was one of those sponsors. They really had the perspective of this is something that we need to get ahead of before it becomes such an issue like it is now in other states. So you're right.
Yeah. And so when I look at this session, we, of course, like I said, we were able to work with lawmakers to get $1 million appropriated to help pregnancy organizations out there that are helping women and girls with unplanned pregnancies. For example, we've done a really good job of making abortion illegal. Why don't we do an even better job of making it irrelevant
Yeah.
by giving women and girls lots of good choices so that they don't feel like they're backed against the wall and have no choice but to go down to an abortion facility
Right.
somewhere and have their baby terminated,
Yeah.
kill their baby. And so even though it's illegal in Arkansas, we know women are still traveling out of state to get abortions. And we'd like to make that something that people just don't need to do or don't feel like they need to do.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're looking at is rights of conscience. And we've all been concerned about discrimination against pastors who want to preach on certain things, discrimination against individuals who maybe don't want to engage in a certain activity in order to graduate from a school, individuals that maybe say, you know what, I'll be glad to sell you a cake, but I don't want to cater your event.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. We were able, working with Robin Lundstrom and the Alliance Defending Freedom and others, to get past the nation's very best religious freedom, rights of conscience law. Now, you're not going to hear about it much because it's like an airbag in your car.
Yeah.
You don't know it's there, but when you have a collision, you're sure glad you got it.
Sure.
The same thing is true of this. Until your religious freedom gets stomped on by the government out here, you're not even going to know that law is there. But when that happens, you're going to reach over there and you're going to be so glad you have this amazing conscience protection law passed by the legislature and signed by the governor that will come to your defense and fight for you to exercise your religious freedom. And not just Christians, it's everybody. Because Jenny, you and I live in a country where, guess what? Everybody has religious freedom.
That's right.
And that's a good thing. And that's the way it should be. So those are a couple of really, really good bills that we were able to work on.
Well, let's talk about a few others. You mentioned the pregnancy center and that religious liberty, the religious freedom. There were a number of other bills that passed that were really great. Let's talk about the library obscenity law very quickly.
Well, yes, right now, if you or I provided obscene material to a child, it would be a crime.
Right.
And it should be.
Yeah.
But guess what? Under the old Arkansas law, librarians were exempt. So they could not be charged with promoting obscenity or providing it. Well, the legislature changed that and said, we don't care if you're a librarian or a preacher or a talk show host or whatever you are, you can't legally provide obscene material to kids. End of discussion. And or anybody else for that matter.
Right.
And so the legislature changed that law. The librarians, had a fit about it, came out and said they should be exempt and all that. And I'm like, obscene material has absolutely no business being in a publicly funded library.
Right.
If somebody has it down here behind a counter hidden somewhere, I guess you can take that up with a prosecutor and they need to figure out if it's allowed or not. But down here at the library ought to be a safe place for a kid to walk around and look at stuff.
Yeah. Are you surprised about how much backlash this particular bill? I know that, there are a lot of people that showed up to testify for and against this bill. But are you surprised at where we are now with it? You have the Central Arkansas Library System, wanting to sue the state over it. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are very left-leaning people took over the libraries, and most of us church going folks never even realized it
Yeah.
until suddenly we said, "Hey, you can't give out that material, or you can't have those books there." And they began to have a conniption. And when they came to the Capitol, it was a real eye opener for me
Mhm.
personally, because I know times change, but when I was a kid, the librarian was like your grandmother,
Yeah.
you know, that walked around and said, "Shh, be quiet, don't chew gum,
Yeah.
don't fold the pages of the book over," or something
Right.
like that. Now, these are people with an agenda. They want to promote the LGBT lifestyle, and they see the library as a way to enlighten, backward people that believe the Bible and that sort of thing.
Well, and
So, yeah, that was
even
an eye opener for me.
yeah, and even to that point, their opponents have said, well, you're banning books, and if you remove these books, and that's not inclusive of the LGBTQ community, and they're not represented. And my first thought is, you can. It doesn't matter if it's homosexual, heterosexual, whatever type of content it is. You can have a particular group represented without making it pornographic.
That
I
is
mean,
exactly
we're simply
right.
saying remove the porn from
Yeah,
the school or
that
from the
is
libraries.
that is exactly right. And now, some libraries have said, okay, we're going to take stuff that may be questionable, we're going to put it over here in a separate section. Well, there's a lawsuit now in
Yeah.
Van Buren because the library over that way decided to move the material into a segregated area and make it off limits for kids. And now people are suing to try to get the stuff moved back out there in the middle of the library. It's just crazy stuff. And
It
people
is.
forget these are funded with our tax dollars.
That's
This is
right.
not a private business. This is not a
Right.
bookstore. This
Right.
this is what we fund with our tax dollars. And when people like you or me raise our hand and say, "Hey, I don't like you spending money on that," then people act like there's something wrong with us. And it's
Right.
like, no, it should reflect the values of the people in the community. And again, it ought to be a safe place for a kid to walk around.
Absolutely. All right. Y'all worked on so many bills. There were so many good things that passed. Let's talk about a few others. I know that you all worked on the Delta 8 bill. I believe that was Tyler D's, and the online pornography that required the age verification as well. And I think, was that Tyler's bill as
It was.
I
Mm-hmm.
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one that involves sex trafficking. So talk to us just briefly about those, and then I want
I'll
to
try to
ask
move.
you
Yeah, I'll
anything
try
else.
to move faster. So, first of all, Delta 8 is
Yeah,
a psychoactive extract that comes out of the hemp plant, not the marijuana plant as we normally talk about it. But people found a way to get THC out of that and market it, and there's a loophole in the law that allows it to be sold. And so
hmm
what we found is they were selling essentially marijuana under Delta 8 in convenience stores, and
yeah,
kids could buy it. Anybody could buy it. So there's a ban on that now that closes that loophole. I think Delta 8, I think they've got until the law goes into effect, which will be sometime later this summer. So it should disappear from the shelves of the convenience stores. And
yeah.
so that's a good thing. The other one is online porn sites. The
hmm
way the world has been, an 8-year-old can go on the internet
Yeah,
and click, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of a porn site.
yeah,
The new law says that before you can do that, you have to upload a copy of your driver's license. And I thought, wow, that's pretty stout. But I began to look into it. The same entities that handle driver's license information for TSA and the states and all that would be like a third party that would handle that information for
hmm
these sites. And so if it works the way it's supposed to, I think it'll be a deterrent for anybody to go to a porn site, because you'll have to upload a copy of your driver's license to get
right,
in. And a
right.
lot of people just won't do that. So I think if we had less porn in our society, that would be a good thing. And less people looking at
Absolutely,
it, it would be a good thing,
absolutely.
and especially protecting kids. So that's what this
Yeah.
law does. The other one is the whole sex trafficking issue.
Mm,
A lot of people think that happens off in some dark big city somewhere.
yeah.
People will tell you, law enforcement will tell you,
Mhm.
sex trafficking is going on right here in Arkansas. It's going on in nice neighborhoods, nice hotels. And there was a girl dumped on a parking lot in Little Rock who had been sex trafficked, and she was left there for dead. The hotel, the lodging place, didn't even know her body was out there for hours till somebody found her out there and reported it. She lived, but
Wow.
the hotel said, well, we didn't know. And it's like, well, you should have known. You got security
Yeah.
cameras all over the place. And so one of the laws that was passed is strengthening what it means to know or should have known if you
Mm,
are a lodging establishment. And so I think if you're pro life, certainly the lives of people that are being trafficked are important.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it provides more accountability to
It
those
does.
hotels. Okay, well, so much good. A lot of good bills passed this session. In your opinion, what do you think should have happened or should have been passed that was not?
Well, and I think there are probably varying opinions on that, but let me tell you the one that grieves me the most
Mhm.
is that we did not do any more to protect people that are in nursing homes, people that are in disabled and are in long-term care facilities. I think if you pull that curtain back and you knew everything that's going on in those facilities with those people that can't stand up for themselves, I think you and I would be appalled. I think
Yeah,
we would probably be ready to go fight somebody
yeah,
because of the way some of these people are treated in these facilities. And we floated the idea of allowing family members to put a camera in the room where their loved one resides, if they are in a nursing home or a
sure.
long term care facility. People almost had a heart attack over that. And I'm like, well, if you put your kid in daycare, you can look at them on camera. If you put your dog
Mhm.
in a boarding dog place, you can look at
Yeah,
your dog. We're videoed all over the place when we're walking around.
absolutely.
Why shouldn't a family be able to put a camera in there if they choose to and the loved one is okay with it so that they can check in on their loved one, especially during a pandemic, the way that
Yes,
was, you couldn't go to the nursing home.
it was
But
awful.
imagine if we could have had people could have had a camera in there. A lot of those are two-way. You can talk to the person,
Yeah.
and it's a way to have some accountability.
And so there
And
was opposition.
the nursing homes have a meltdown over that. And you have to ask, hmm, why
Why?
would a nursing home
Yeah,
not want there to be a camera in the room?
right. Yeah, it's almost like by opposing there being that accountability and transparency by admittance, you're saying, oh, we know that there may be some things going on that we wouldn't want people to know about.
That's right. And
Yeah, that's
and the
sad.
truth is, I believe that is the case in many facilities. And so some states have done really well with this. About a dozen states have a law like that. That's one of the things I want to come back and really push hard for.
Mhm.
And people say, well, what about privacy? Well, you work out the privacy issues where the camera is turned off at certain times if a person is bathing or having
Sure.
a medical procedure, or even if they're having a spiritual counselor in the room with them. You have
Right.
procedures in place where, okay, the cameras are going to be off for a little bit. Now we're going to turn it back on. Here's when it was off. Here's when we turned it back on. But we know of too many cases where old people have fallen out of the bed and lay there on the floor for hours.
Mm,
Well, if you're checking in on them, you can call the nursing home and say, hey, grandma just fell
yeah.
out of bed. Will you run down there
Yeah.
and help
Right.
her? And those kinds of things. So,
Yeah. It doesn't make
I-
sense to me for there to be any type of opposition when it's something that would protect our most vulnerable. And that
and it's
includes,
voluntary. It's
yeah,
voluntary. You
yeah, I
don't
mean,
have to have a
from
camera in
babies to
there.
our elderly. I don't understand how people can oppose things like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an area that we as people who, again, we say we're pro-life.
Yeah.
Well, we better be pro-life about grandma and the person that is disabled, the person that can't feed themselves, that's in a facility. We need to stand up for those people, because there are lots of people out there who think these are throwaway lives. They're not
Mhm.
worth anything. Well, guess what? God is the one that decides those things, not us. And if they're
Yeah,
alive, then it's a valuable life as far as we're concerned.
absolutely. Well, anything else that you want to add or that is on Family Council's radar that you want us to be aware of?
Well, I think we are going to need to watch the LEARNS Act a whole bunch,
Okay.
because it's a 144-page bill, but they're making rules and promoting those even right now.
Right.
And the rules for it will really be telling about what it's actually going to be. And so if you think, job done, we don't have to think about this anymore, no, you better be watching the rules, because how they make those rules will make all the difference.
Absolutely. We will be watching, as we know Family Council will also. Jerry, thank you so much for coming on
But it's
Conduit
always
and
a
sharing your
pleasure. Thank you
perspective.
for having me on, and just appreciate the great work that you guys do there at Conduit. You're a voice for truth and getting the word out to people, and that's what we're all about. And I appreciate the good work that you do there.
Thank you so much. Hope to have you back on with us again very soon.
Okay, thank you.